Welcome. I'm Phaedra Ruffalo, the Senior Director of Market Development for the American Egg Board. The American Egg Board is the national commodity marketing organization for America's egg farmers, also known as a checkoff program. The American Egg Board is 100% funded by the U.S. egg farmers with oversight by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Established in 1976, our job is to drive demand for U.S. eggs and egg products through research, education, and promotion. On behalf of America's egg farmers, we are excited to introduce Egg Pro, powered by Rubin, the first comprehensive egg training course. Egg Pro covers the basics of egg cookery for restaurants to high volume operations, egg safety, and the functionality of the incredible egg that's leveraged in food service operations and food manufacturing. With the completion of these courses, you will receive a total of 30 continuing education credit hours from the American Culinary Federation. Here are some highlights of each course. Egg Foundations is focusing on areas such as egg safety, dry heat cooking methods, as well as using eggs in high volume operations. Egg Functionality highlights areas such as foaming, aeration, coagulation, and crystallization control. For today's topic, protein fortification and nutrition with eggs, you'll not only learn why the incredible egg is a nutritional powerhouse, but also the various functionality that the egg contributes to your product initiatives. Our hosts, Dr. Mickey Rubin from the Egg Nutrition Center of the American Egg Board and Chef Emily Cruz of Culinex will highlight how the egg enhances the nutritional profile in various product applications. Thank you again for joining us today to learn all about what makes the egg so incredible. It has been an honor to provide this program in partnership with Rouxbe. Our special thanks to Dr. Mickey Rubin and Chef Emily Cruz for their help in bringing Egg Pro to life. So without further ado, I'll pass this over to Dr. Rubin and Chef Emily to tell you more about the excellent nutritional story that the incredible egg can provide you in your product development efforts.
Hello, I'm Emily Cruz, Director of Sales and Marketing at Culinex, a product development consultancy focused exclusively on clean label foods. I was honored to be a part of the American Egg Board team that created the Egg Pro Egg Functionality curriculum. Today, I'd like to share some tips and tricks for using real eggs to fortify protein and other nutrients in foods of all different kinds.
Hi, I'm Dr. Mickey Rubin, Executive Director of the Egg Nutrition Center, Nutrition Science and Education Division of the American Egg Board. Today, I'm here to talk to you about the nutritional benefits of eggs, of which there are numerous. Let's begin with protein, the nutrient most people think of when they think of eggs, and for good reason. Eggs contain one of the highest quality proteins available, with one large egg providing 6 grams of high quality protein. I often hear people discuss the quality of a protein, but it is less understood what it means for a protein to be high quality. While there are very clear scientific definitions of high quality, protein quality is determined by 2 factors. First, the amino acids that make up the structure of the protein. Second, the digestibility of that protein. In the case of egg protein, it contains all essential amino acids, or the amino acids your body cannot make on its own. While at the same time, when egg protein is digested, your body can absorb and utilize all the amino acids of the egg protein. These 2 factors are measured by a method known as PDCAS, or Protein Digestibility Corrected Amino Acid Score. Eggs score the highest possible 1.0 on the PDCAS scale. Dairy proteins also have a similar high score. Plant proteins tend to score much, much lower. This is important because when it comes to protein quality, it can be difficult to replace the quality of egg protein with other protein sources. For example, protein quality scores are utilized when determining the daily value of protein provided by a food on the nutrition facts label. One egg provides 6 grams of high quality protein and thus 12% of the daily value on the nutrition facts label, otherwise known as a good source. But if another protein provided 6 grams, but at a lower PDCAS of say 0.5, the daily value provided would be lower than that of an egg, even though the grams of protein listed on the label are the same. Eggs, however, are not just protein, but rather contain a host of nutrients in addition to protein. I like to call eggs a multivitamin in a shell. Eggs are naturally nutrient rich, containing 8 essential nutrients. Eggs provide an excellent source of vitamin B12, biotin, iodine, selenium, and choline. Choline is a nutrient essential for brain health that is especially important for pregnant women, babies, and toddlers. The recent Dietary Guidelines for Americans Advisory Committee identified choline as a nutrient that Americans fall far short of meeting recommendations. Eggs are also a good source of high-quality protein, riboflavin, pantothenic acid, and provide 6% of the daily value of vitamin D, another nutrient Americans don't get enough of. These nutrients come in a unique package for only 70 calories per egg. Because of this, the Dietary Guidelines for Americans refers to eggs as a nutrient-dense food. Eggs are also a source of nutrients known as carotenoids, specifically lutein and zeaxanthin. These are nutrients that are responsible for the pigment of the egg yolk and are also important for supporting eye health. I do want to point out that most of the nutrients in eggs are found in the yolk. Yes, the white is made up of high-quality protein, but the yolk is where all the other nutrients are. Don't toss the yolk. Lastly, I do want to touch on one more nutrient in eggs, and that is cholesterol. The science on dietary cholesterol has evolved significantly over the last several decades. In fact, in 2015, the Dietary Guidelines for Americans removed the daily limit on dietary cholesterol. Additionally, recent guidance from the American Heart Association states that eggs can be part of a heart-healthy diet pattern, recommending an egg a day for healthy individuals, up to 2 eggs a day for healthy older individuals because of the high-quality protein being important during aging, and more eggs for vegetarians. In closing, eggs are a nutritional powerhouse that contribute to health and well-being at every age and life stage, and as part of any healthy diet. And now, I'll turn it over to Emily, who will tell us more about utilizing egg ingredients in product formulations.
There are many different protein ingredients on the market for product developers to choose from, including animal and plant-based protein ingredients. There are even egg replacers, but none work precisely the same as an egg and do not match the nutritional profile. Oftentimes, multiple ingredients are required to substitute for the functionality of eggs provided in a recipe or formula. Today's consumers are turned off by foods with synthetic additives or unfamiliar ingredients. They want clean label foods with ingredients they recognize in their own pantry. And most American consumers already have eggs in their own kitchens. Due to their high quality and bioavailable protein content, eggs remain the gold standard for protein fortification. There are many applications where eggs can be used to increase protein and add valuable essential nutrients to foods for consumers at all life stages. Today, we'll walk through a few specific opportunities for protein fortification with real eggs. Example applications include beverages such as smoothies, powdered beverage mixes, and prepared drinks, baked goods and baking mixes such as cakes, cookies, muffins, donuts, and brownies, bars such as protein bars, energy bars or granola bars, meal replacement bars, and snack bites, entrees such as sandwiches, handheld entrees, bowls, frozen and refrigerated meals, and desserts such as ice cream and frozen desserts, mousse, pudding, custard, cheesecake, etc. Now let's talk about beverages. Beverages of all kinds can be fortified with eggs to increase protein and enhance sensory attributes, including ready-to-drink beverages, powdered mixes, and frozen concentrates. Use whole eggs for a more complete nutrient profile, which is often lacking in many beverages. Create aerated, foamy textures with egg whites and whole eggs. Use whole eggs for enhanced creaminess and richness. That smooth and creamy mouthfeel you can make happen without dairy, which is an added bonus. Use dried egg white solids for more concentrated protein source, There's no need to prehydrate with water, and you can use other liquid components such as fruit juice and purees. Up to 10% fortification with dried egg whites is possible without a noticeable impact to flavor or mouthfeel. Baked goods are another category where fortification with eggs can make a lot of sense, especially with keto and other specialized dietary patterns trending. Consumers are looking for bakery experiences without the empty carbs and calories from traditional starches and flours, which form the bulk of most doughs and batters. Eggs not only increase protein in doughs and baked goods, they contribute other beneficial functional properties important to create a pleasant eating experience. Particularly for gluten-free baked goods, the protein within egg ingredients can add much needed structure, which is often lacking due to the absence of wheat flour and the lower protein content contributed by most substitute or alternative flours. Eggs play a multifunctional role in fortified baked goods, including moisture control, aeration, emulsification, and coagulation, which can aid with structure, texture, appearance, and of course, flavor. Whole eggs and egg whites both work well, depending on the texture you're trying to achieve and other ingredients, such as almond flour, coconut flour, sweet potato, cassava flour, and more. Another opportunity for fortification are snacks. You can fortify snacks of all kinds with whole eggs or egg whites to increase protein and promote good texture and browning and enhance overall eating qualities. Use eggs in extruded snacks for puffed textures, baked snacks and crispy textured, fried, crunchy, and even create other textures such as soft, chewy, and aerated with egg products. Eggs work particularly well in free-from formulations, which we've talked about a little bit. They lend protein and structure while acting as a neutral flavor base. So think of snacks that are gluten-free or nut-free, low carbohydrate, we've talked about keto and there's others, or just plant-based, those made with nuts, seeds, vegetables, or legumes. And lastly, let's talk about dips, spreads, and sauces. Another great application for protein fortification, consider adding dried egg white solids to nut and seed butter spreads, such as peanut butter, which dried egg whites can act as a stabilizer and reduce the need for palm oil or hydrogenated fats. The egg whites prevent oil separation over time, in addition to increasing the protein content. Another type of dip which benefits from protein fortification with eggs are dairy-based dips like cream cheese. They're typically high in fat, and adding egg whites is a great way to increase the protein content even further. And additionally, increase the protein quality in plant-based dips and spreads such as hummus, which are typically high in carbs and fat, but not as high in protein. Depending on the target protein content, you may be able to add from 10 to 20% or even higher in your formulation of dried egg white solids without a noticeable impact to flavor and texture in your dip, sauce, or spread. As you can see, there are many ways in which you can leverage the functional power of real eggs to make foods of all kinds with excellent quality protein. And now let's look and see what questions we have from the audience. Mickey, do you want to take the first one?
Sure, let's go ahead and look at our list here. The first question I see is the quality of the protein affected by pasteurization? And how is protein functionality impacted? Actually, I could probably take the first part of that question, and then I might pass the second part of that question over to you, Emily. So when it comes to the quality of the protein being affected by pasteurization, I think the short answer is no, it is not. What pasteurization, heating it, or even cooking an egg does not affect the amino acid content of the protein in that egg. So it still has all the essential amino acids that it would have either raw state or in a pasteurized or even fully cooked. In fact, there's actually research to show that the cooked egg has better amino acid bioavailability than the raw egg. So you're actually probably improving the bioavailability with pasteurization or cooking fully. So no worries on that front. When it comes to protein functionality of the pasteurized egg, Emily, can you speak to that?
Certainly, I'd be happy to. Am I muted? Can you hear me? Okay, great. Thank you. Yes, so while the amino acid content is not affected, certain proteins can be denatured at different temperatures. And we want to keep those different functional proteins intact depending on the use occasion. So for eggs that have high whip capabilities, we want to pasteurize them at a lower temperature for a longer time. And that's how those egg products are made. Whereas a high gel egg product or a commodity egg white, they might be pasteurized at a different temperature range. So the pasteurization protocol has been put in place depending on the egg product and depending on its final use. So you can rest assured that functionality should not be impacted.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's a question of nutrition versus functionality, and sometimes depending on what you're most interested in depends on, if it will be affected by pasteurization or not. So, nutrition's not affected, but perhaps functionality could be.
Exactly. Yeah, something to think about. Let's see. I see another question here. Does the cooking method or the method of cooking impact the nutrients in eggs? Mickey, you said it sounds like the nutritional quality was perhaps improved by cooking, but do you happen to know any more about any specific cooking methods and how that might be impacted?
Yeah, that's a good question. In general, we tend to say that, the cooking doesn't materially affect the nutrition of the egg. So we talked about protein, but there's also obviously the other nutrients that I spoke about a little earlier. Heating, cooking shouldn't impact it to a significant degree. In fact, I'm often reminded of the scene from Rocky where he was eating raw eggs. I think the nutritional benefits and the risks of safety in that situation are outweighed by cooking the egg. So I think no matter how you make your egg, no matter how you like your egg, I think you could rest assured that the nutritional content of the egg is going to be the same.
And on that same note, you should know that all egg products, so all eggs removed from the shell, have been pasteurized for food safety. So they are safe to eat as is, even though they may be in a liquid form, they've been pasteurized. So just wanted to add that bit. And it looks like the next question, I can take this one. You mentioned using egg whites to replace syrups and bars. Tell us more. Yes, so using egg whites to fortify with protein, by adding more eggs, you have to take away something else. And it would be great if you could take away some sugar, right? So one of the places, especially in bars, where the sugar content is really driven by a syrupy binder that's a highly functional ingredient. It's keeping the bar moist and chewy and holding everything together. But of course, it's high in sugar. So to help mitigate that, you could consider using eggs as a product to add to your syrup or to your binder to help reduce some of that sugar. And of course, there's limits to how much you can get away with in different types of formulas. But you can use an egg white based syrup. So actually, like you make a meringue, you dissolve sugar in egg whites and you whip it up. It's sort of that same idea, just not necessarily going all the way to the whipping stage. You could whip it and get some aeration in there if that was a texture attribute that you were after. But just a really different and creative way to think about a protein fortification, but also potentially a way to reduce added sugar. Some added sugar. All right, and I see another question here that I can do on hydrating dried eggs. So hydrating dried whole eggs, whites, and yolks. And we talked a little bit about that. You don't need to fully hydrate dried products. Depending on what you're using them in, you may not want to do that. But if you do want to hydrate back to reconstitute them, if you go to the AEB website, they've got some quick and easy to download PDFs on how to do those conversions. Essentially, dried egg yolks or egg yolks, are 55% water. So when you're using dried egg product, you have to calculate that back out. Whole eggs are 75% water and egg whites are 85. So when you remove that water and that dried egg white, they're really concentrated with protein. So they're usually my top pick. And you don't need to hydrate them, like I said. So if you do want to hydrate them or need to hydrate them, you can pre-hydrate and mix the dried egg product with water and let it sit for 15 minutes. Give it a little mix and let it sit. And usually that gives really good results. You can add the dried eggs to the other dried ingredients if you're making a dry blend, or just for ease of processing, that's what works. Or you can add the dried eggs to the liquid ingredients. Sometimes I'll make a super fortified egg product by taking liquid eggs and then adding even more dried eggs to get a super protein product. So it's up to you, and there's lots of different ways depending on the application that you might consider with hydration. Let's see. How about this? A question from Mickey. How is the protein content calculated for a product when it comes from multiple sources, such as eggs and legumes together? Yeah, this is a great question. So say you're using, almond flour and eggs in a keto product. How do you calculate that protein with, you mentioned those PDCAAS scores?
Yeah, so I think there's actually probably two questions here. One is how do you calculate the content, and then the quality, I guess, is a second question. The content's actually probably pretty simple. It's the protein of one ingredient plus the protein of ingredient 2 plus the protein of ingredient 3 in terms of an absolute amount. So that's fairly simple if you have multiple ingredients in one dish. The quality gets a little bit more complicated because it requires knowing the amino acid breakdown of each of your proteins. So while eggs contain all essential amino acids, like I mentioned earlier, it's a high quality protein. Something like legumes, which is a great example in this question, does not. So the protein quality of legumes tends to be a little lower on that PDCAAS scale. So what I actually like here is when you combine protein sources. Let's say you do have a lower quality protein source like legumes. When you combine it with a high quality protein source, that makes the entire combination high quality. So whatever limiting amino acids were not available in the legumes that you might be working with, bringing an egg to that mixture really compensates for that. So you take what might have been a low quality protein dish or combination, adding a high quality protein to it, that raises the level of the entire dish. So that's a really good way to think about formulation. Utilizing egg protein as a way to enhance the protein quality of the entire dish. So really good question.
Certainly.
Let's see here. Go see some other questions here that are nutrition focused. If you don't mind, Emily, I'll take one. You mentioned eggs are nutritious for babies and toddlers, but should we be concerned about egg allergy? That's a great question, especially since the science on this topic has evolved significantly and recently. It used to be that when it came to food allergies, we recommended avoidance of these potential allergens, for babies and for toddlers, because just to be safe. You didn't know if they might be allergic, so there was a avoidance practice just to be safe. The science on that has especially true of two of the major allergens, eggs and peanuts. The research now shows that introducing eggs and peanuts early significantly reduces the risk of developing an egg or a peanut allergy later on. So, and this is just was recommended by American Academy of Pediatrics last year, and just recently, just a couple of weeks ago, the Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee, which is reviewing the science for the 2020 dietary guidelines, are making recommendations for children from birth to 2 years for the first time. Again, recommended this same concept of early introduction being. Now, the question is, when do you introduce? The key there is when the child is developmentally ready, in the area of 4 to 6 months, definitely within the first year of life. So that 6-month time period is generally when you're supposed to start introducing solid foods as a sort of a complement to breastfeeding. So around that time is when it is now recommended to start introducing those allergens. So as early as 4, definitely by 6, hopefully. But again, depending on when the infant is developmentally ready, and so that's obviously a individual situation between parent and pediatrician. So great question.
Great. All right, let's do another one on where to start with fortifying a product with eggs. How do you know where to start with formulation, and what's the maximum amount of dried eggs you can add? Well, of course, this will really depend on what application you're speaking about. If you're speaking about a cookie, typically cookies have 6 to 10% eggs, maybe 15% eggs. In an age-old food cake, maybe it's 30% or more. So those are not fortified, but those are just some starting places. So you can get a sense. When I'm fortifying, I think a good place to start, is 10%, and see if I can get any higher. But of course, this will be driven by any claims you're wanting to make. So if you have a specific protein claim that you're trying to work towards, so like an excellent source or a good source of protein, and you'll want to be taking into account the protein quality and content. For this reason, you want to do some quick calculations before you get started on the bench to say, how much egg do I need to get in there to meet my protein goals? And is that feasible given my formula balance? And that can help you decide where to start and where to place the egg. So depending on your formula, you may consider a liquid or a dried egg product. The more protein you're wanting to fortify in something, the higher likelihood it is that you're going to choose a dried egg product rather than a liquid egg product. So you can control the amount of moisture that you add. And yeah, I would say start, 5 to 10 based on wherever you're trying to get. I've seen good results, 20 or 30% in different applications, especially egg whites. You don't tend to see off flavors or colors like you might with egg yolks. There's more fat and nutrients and color that you just notice more. Egg whites can make a milky or creamy appearance, which may or may not be a benefit in something like a smoothie or other kind of fruit-based applications. In baked goods, you really don't see much of a difference. So that's a really long-winded answer, and to say just get on the bench and play and pick a starting point and see if that works and move up or down from there.
Yeah, just to build on that, Emily, you brought up a really good point about claims, and I kind of alluded to this earlier in my intro. But some people might not know the difference between a good source and an excellent source of a nutrient. So for protein, for example, in order to claim a good source on a nutrition facts label, you need to achieve 10% of the daily value. In order to achieve an excellent source on a label, you need to achieve 20% of the daily value. So the daily value of protein is so 5 grams, for example, is 10% of the daily value. A large egg has 6 grams, so therefore the large egg provides 12% of the daily value. So you kind of, as Emily said, figure out where you want to start and then kind of build from there to achieve a certain label claim. But in order to achieve that, the minimum amount, which would be a good source, 10% of the daily value, you need 5 grams of high quality protein. And then, as I mentioned earlier, if your protein quality is lower, then the bar might be higher. But if it's high quality protein, like egg whites, 5 grams is the minimum to say good source, and then up from.
And to build on that, again, the reference amount customarily consumed is what you're going to want to look at, the typical serving size for that 5 or 10 grams. So, and for a snack, it might be an ounce of product, or a cookie or 2 cookies, or 1 granola bar. And you have to ask yourself, is it feasible to cram 5 grams of protein into this serving size of this food? Do I need to adjust the serving size or think creatively about where my protein is going to come from? So just something to consider. Protein fortification can be really easier or harder depending on how much food you're working with.
Yeah, it's a really important point, Emily. Not a lot of people forget the RAC, the reference amount customarily consumed, like I just, but that's a really important part of your protein fortification plan.
Yes. All right. And just going down, we've got some more about choosing the right egg product. How do I choose the right egg product for my application from Adam? Yeah, this one, like I said, there's no right or wrong answer for which egg product. So there's no hard and fast rules, but there's definitely some starting points. So whole eggs definitely have different functional attributes than egg whites, and they perform differently. So think about what you're wanting to get out of the egg. Is it really about just the pure protein? I want to pack as much protein in there without any off colors or flavors, or am I looking for this egg product to do more? Am I looking for binding or aeration or structure building, texturizing, some of the other functionalities that the egg product provides? And that will help guide your selection of egg product. So you might consider a high whip or a high gel egg white, depending on your application. A high whip, maybe you want a fluffy aerated texture and protein, or a high gel, say you're really trying to combine in a veggie burger type application that you're trying to even further fortify with protein, and you want something to really provide structure and bind ingredients together, you might consider high gel egg whites. Those are typically used in surimi. So that fish product, like crab sticks you see in your sushi, those egg whites really help to gel those fish proteins together, and you could apply that same principle to a different application. So again, there's no right or wrong answer. I would encourage you to order samples from suppliers and test them in your application at different levels and play around. All right, and going back to that syrup question, it looks like there was another question asked, is there a ratio to replace syrups with egg whites? So I wouldn't necessarily suggest starting with a 1-for-1 replacement of egg white to syrup. You certainly could and just see what happens. That may work. I would suggest reducing the amount of syrup and fortifying with egg white and starting there, I think, to get better results rather than replacing or removing entirely. But you never know. They're getting pretty creative these days, and sugar reduction is a huge focus. And there's a lot of functional ingredients, fibers and things that can help with sugar reduction. But the egg white there is there as a functional ingredient, as a bulking agent to make up some of that bulk. You had to take away all that sugar, and say if you added a stevia or a monk fruit, oftentimes you're really looking for ingredients to make up that volume that the sugar replaced, whereas it's pretty easy to meet the sweetness, but to match that mouthfeel, sometimes the egg whites can be beneficial there. All right. Should I incorporate dried egg whites into the liquid or dried? We've talked about this a little bit already. I think, again, there's no right or wrong answer. I've done it both ways or all the ways, depending on what you're seeing. It can be helpful to prehydrate before whipping egg whites, especially. We have found that to be helpful if you're using dried high whip egg whites, to hydrate them for 15 minutes before use, or you can do it overnight, but you don't need to. But really, that's the one area that I've seen a major impact where it makes sense to prehydrate. Where can I find suppliers of egg products, of liquid, frozen, dried, and value-added egg ingredients? Like this question alludes to, there's a lot of different egg products. There's a wide variety, and there's many different suppliers. And you can go to the www.aeb.org website and go to the suppliers guide, and you can actually do a search. You can search by any egg product or egg functionality and find what you're looking for there, and suppliers to reach out to. And looks like there's one more question. Emily, what are a few of your personal favorite ways to use eggs in recipes to leverage their nutritional value? Awesome. I love this question. I love eating eggs in general, as is, but I also love adding them to stuff. Like we mentioned earlier, spreads and dips are a really easy way to add protein. So make a protein cracker and then a protein spread. We're seeing those. So peanut butters, cream cheese, any kind of hummus, that's an easy one. Smoothies, of course, and beverages, but anywhere that you have other dried ingredients, egg whites are easy to add in. Yeah, I don't know. Let's see if I had to pick one favorite egg fortified application. We've been doing a lot of keto stuff, and there's a recipe on the AEB website for these pesto puffs. And we made them at IFT a couple years ago and served them as samples. They're really tasty. They've got spinach and almonds and garlic, and the egg whites are there as an aeration, but also for protein. They gave it that light whipped aerated texture that is baked to a crispy texture in the oven. So you make kind of a savory meringue with veggies. It sounds crazy, but like a Cheeto, right? You get this puffed thing. So that's a favorite of mine. How about you, Mickey? Do you have any favorite egg fortified foods?
Well, so I was thinking when you were answering this question, it reminded me that there's actually some really interesting nutrition research on the topic of eggs and combining eggs with vegetables. Some research that was performed at Purdue University Department of Nutrition looked at whether or not consuming eggs or vegetables and consuming them together, that actually enhanced the nutritional value of those vegetables. And that's exactly what they found. They found that they took a raw vegetable salad, and they found that adding an egg to that raw vegetable salad actually helped individuals absorb the nutrients from that salad better when it was combined with the egg, because the egg has a healthy fat source, and a lot of those nutrients in the vegetable, like vitamin D or carotenoids, are fat soluble. And so when you have a healthy fat source from the egg, that actually helps with absorption of those nutrients when you're eating them. So that's something I've tried to incorporate more into how I eat eggs, whether veggie scramble or taking the leftover veggies from last night's dinner and putting them in a frittata or an omelet. That really is not only delicious, but it's a great way to sort of get a better bang for your buck when it comes to nutritional value of the overall meal.
That's great. And
so,
since this is, I was gonna say, this is our free soapbox hour, to keep talking. I'm really glad you brought that up about the nutrients and making them more bioavailable. Yolks, people discount yolks and they focus a lot on egg whites. And even like I did today, we talked mostly about egg whites, but I don't want to discount whole eggs and egg yolks, because there is a ton of nutritional powerhouse in those yolks that can further enhance the nutrient absorption. Do you want to speak a little bit more about yolks at all?
Yeah, so that's a great point. I love talking with my chefs and my food science friends, because you hear all about the great functionality of their ingredients, and egg whites are a perfect example of that. So there's obviously going to be certain instances where you're only going to want to use the white for the functionality of it. So I get that. As a nutritionist, I get that. But as a nutritionist, I do get frustrated when people toss the yolk otherwise, because that's where all the nutrients are. The egg white has protein and it's great, but the yolk has all the other vitamins, minerals, and bioactives that we discussed already. Actually, it has a lot of protein too. 40% almost of the whole egg protein is in the yolk. So I understand from a functionality perspective where the white is what you are aiming for or need for a certain situation, but whenever possible, utilize the yolk, because not only is that part the healthy fats and it's delicious and savory, but there's also nutritional nutrient density, nutritional reason for eating eggs in that yolk as well. So I think I just
Definitely.
One last question here on the list here, and then that's where can we go to find more about current egg nutrition research. So the research that I've already talked about, whether it's protein quality or even the research about combining the eggs with vegetables, you can find all of that on the Egg Nutrition Center website. So go to eggnutritioncenter.org. A lot of information about the nutrients in eggs, the latest research, whether it's on, and we talked about the benefits of nutrients like choline and brain development or early introduction and allergies, protein, obviously has so many. You can find a lot of that information there on our website.
Perfect. Well, it looks like those are all of the questions. If there's not any others, please feel free to follow up with us. Send your questions in through Ruby and I'll make sure they get addressed. We encourage you to sign up if you haven't already for the courses. Let us know what you think. We're eager to hear your feedback. This was great. Mickey, thank you so much for joining me here today. If there's not anything else, we'll let you guys go. Have an excellent rest of your week.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.